right. Hey, welcome to another edition of the Living Boldly with Purpose podcast. Chris, can you see me? I know we had some technical difficulties before.
I
So I
got
want to
you.
make All right. So I just want to make sure that I am on and you are on. So excited about today's show. Chris and I were talking just a few minutes ago. We were talking, about the show and about the things that we're excited about. And he was telling me he gets to go do a retreat right now. And so excited about just even the possibilities of what does a retreat look like and how do you help people and how do you get away? And, as I think of it, I work with another gentleman who came on. His name was Eli. And he has like a retreat center out in Oregon, which I'm like, this got to be so amazing to be able to go out there. And then he does these solo retreats. And then this last weekend, I live in Denver, Colorado, and we have a botanical garden that's here. And so I did it. Just my wife and I went out and we spent the day at the botanical garden and, kind of just, went through some prompts and some other things. And it's so neat to get away. But when you're able to take folks with you, it's just so much more. I can go on a retreat and I can, this is great for me and, learn a whole bunch of stuff and write a whole bunch of stuff and kind of make what my life is going to look like. But it's so much different. At least it seems to me it's so much different when I have a group of people and you see this transformation, like they show up for you one way and then they leave a different person. And then even like 6 months later, they're still calling you and talking about some of the things that we do. And so I'm so excited about you to be able to do that. But before we talk about the retreats, I want to make sure that Chris gets the opportunity to tell his story. Like I do with all my guests, I say, hey, your story can start wherever you want it to. If it starts, hopefully it's not too much before you were actually born. But sometimes it is, sometimes they want to tell story of their parents and that kind of stuff. And so if that's what's best, and then up to now and what you're doing, and then we'll kind of chop it up after that. So thank you for being on today. Thank you for willing to take your time out of your day today to be on with us and to kind of tell us who you are and what you do. So Chris, the floor is yours. Can't wait to hear.
Thank you, Dr. B. I'm excited to be here. And thank you for giving me the opportunity and the platform to share what I do. I'm fortunate enough to be able to say that I'm living my life's work. I'm living my purpose every day, and incredibly, incredibly grateful and blessed to be able to do that. My story started. I imagine like many people that go to a good school, get a good job, and I had this view of, hey, you're just gonna work the rest of your life in this good company and get a good paycheck and then retire. And that was like my model of happiness in life for probably the better part of the first at least 20 years of my life. And I did all of that. And fast forward to 22 years old, right out of college, working my first job in finance. And I just remember I was driving, started with the story, driving to work. And I just remember thinking like, this is not me. It felt like I was living out someone else's life, if that makes sense. And I didn't know who I was at the time, a young guy with very little life experience and just trying to figure it out. But I remember thinking like, this isn't what I want to do. And I remember that day sitting in this early morning meeting and then throughout the day, just like, wow, contemplating, not working, but just like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. And at the end of that day, I just walked into my boss's office and I said, hey, I can't do this anymore. This isn't what I'm here to do. And before I really would have had the word for intuition, that's exactly what it was. It was just screaming loud at me, like something else is for you. And so I quit that job, and that cascaded me into figuring out this thing called entrepreneurship. That was one of the first labels that I would have defined myself for. I just started figuring out how I wanted to serve people. And that was the big thing at that point. I just didn't feel like I was helping anyone. I just felt like a cog in the wheel and didn't really have purpose in my day. I was just doing the job that was in front of me. And I was just hungry. I was hungry for more meaning in my life. And I didn't really know what that meant, but what I did was really one of the few things that I knew how, that I had experience in. And I actually at 22 years old started my first company, which I ended up growing into a gym. It was a fitness company, and back then I was just running classes outside on a field and passing flyers around and like trying to figure out business the hard way. And I did, and I grew that and was fairly successful early on. I think a combination of a lot of hard work and dedication. And then also, I wouldn't have had the words for this at the time either, but just like a servant heart. Like every person that came in my doors, I just wanted to do right by them. I wanted to help them. I wanted to serve them. And so I think people felt that. And so the community grew, the business grew, the gym grew. And yeah, I had some really great success. And that was like my first foray into coaching, because every person that came through the doors, I would sit down with them one-on-one and we would just talk. That'd be the first thing we do. We talk about what's going on for them, and we'd start with fitness. But what I realized more and more was that there was always deeper and deeper layers. And what may be presenting as, hey, I'm just 20 pounds overweight and I want to lose this, or I want to get into shape, there was always something below that. And I started to get more and more curious about that. And that took me into the realm of mindset work. I started studying a lot of the personal development masters. I was reading a book a week at one point, sometimes 2 books a week, and just consuming knowledge and really trying to really just help the people that are in front of me and just be better myself. Mm-hmm. And, yeah. And that was really my foray into going deeper into the coaching. I started coaching people on mindset, coaching some athletes. And then that started, opened up the doors I started coaching at some companies and helping out their workforce, and started coaching some entrepreneurs and some business owners. And I realized I had this like skill of seeing the whole big picture of like what was going on in their life and through the words that they were sharing with me. And really quickly, like my mind was like a laser sniper. It would like go right to the thing and just ask like a really poignant question, and it would end up serving them and really impacting them. And so, yeah. And that continued on. So I've been coaching in all different realms. I say I'm coaching physical and fitness and nutrition and mindset and business and marketing and entrepreneurship and all these different things. And that all really ties into the work that I do today with my clients and on my retreats and all that. But I did, even before I got to the place I am now, I had quite a big moment of life change. I was started things for the right reason. And along the way, I started another company. It was a healthy meal delivery company. And I started it for the right reasons, was helping people really just try to eat healthier. And somewhere along the way, I kind of lost sight of my vision and started making decisions that were more for the money and more for just growth for growth's sake, and ended up growing that company nationwide. And it became the most stressful experience that I could ever imagine. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, and I was giving every ounce of what I had into it. And I was completely stressed. I was, here I was like supposed to be the poster child of health. I owned a gym and this healthy meal delivery company, mindset coach. And yet inside I was falling apart. I was falling apart. Injury, stress. And it kind of all came to a head for me in 2016. And I had a health crisis, and it really stopped me in my tracks, to say them like in simple terms. And I had to stop working out, which was a big part of my identity. I had to stop working so hard, which was a huge part of my identity. And I was forced to basically just sit and reflect. And that's when I got into meditation. That's when I got into mindfulness and spending more time in nature. And it was all a part of my, call it my stress recovery process, trying to unwind this burden that I was carrying, and I didn't really know why. And through that process, I had a major life change. I ended up getting into some deeper emotional healing work and just shifting some unconscious patterns that I had that were leading me to keep making these stupid mistakes all over and over again that didn't hurt. It hurt me. It didn't help me. And so in that process, it was messy. I ended up getting divorced in that process. I was not a nice person back then because I had no capacity for anything, and ended up selling the businesses and kind of going on a, what some people would call like a little bit of a midlife crisis, but really what it was like a crisis to find me. And I'd kind of gotten so far out from like where I really wanted to be. I felt so off center. I kind of get that sense that I did earlier on where I was living someone else's life or living for someone else.
Yeah.
And in that process, I had a lot of great mentors and teachers and coaches, and they helped me so much. And also like spending time in nature, going on retreat, like we talked about at the beginning. Every time I peeled a layer back, I got more in touch with this deeper purpose within me. And it always came back to service and how can I serve people? And now what I do today is taking all of that wealth of knowledge and information that I accumulated over that time and helping people to uncover and remove a lot of their unconscious or subconscious beliefs that keep them stuck, hitting this invisible ceiling that everyone sets on their life. Everyone has some version of an invisible ceiling. We all have different words for it, but we all have a version that keeps us playing a little smaller, keeps us not taking the shot at what we really desire, having the life we really desire. And I support people in removing those. And primarily now I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that frankly were in a similar position that I was. They've created something really amazing on the external, but inside they're having a lot of suffering, to be honest. And it could be affecting their health, their relationships, and definitely like their mental health, their stress levels. And so that's what I do today. And I do that through group programs, in-person retreats, and one-on-one coaching as well. So.
Cool. Yeah. When you start thinking about it, and, one of the things that I think about really deeply, I guess, is identity, right? Who that person is that you are that is able to do. And so the book that I have that's coming out, that hopefully it'll be here on Monday, but it's called Be, Do, Have. So becoming the person before you start to do and have. And then if you become the person, you can't help but do. And then when you start doing, you get to have. And it seems like we all, especially when we get into entrepreneurship, we just kind of do it backwards. We try to go do all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so maybe kind of talk about some of those shifts in who you were that realized, all the way even back to working the jobs that said, no, these jobs aren't any good, mm-hmm. To saying I want to be an entrepreneur, but then the identity of what an entrepreneur is, maybe kind of walk us through a little bit about your shifts there.
First, I love that. I'm going to have to get a copy of your book because that's a huge part of the work that I do is becoming first. It's be first. Yes. And I didn't really understand that. Like you said, in this like material pursuit of life that most people are living in, it's like, you go out and you do the thing, you get the things and you accumulate them. And what I found was when I did it that way, when I did it backwards, it took so much energy. It felt like I was always pushing against something invisible. And for me, that led me to just keep working harder and harder and harder until I physically couldn't anymore. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap. And so, along the journey in that that finding myself crisis that I had, I really realized that truth is that we become that version first. And like you said, it's the what we desire and all those things external get magnetized to us like the strongest magnet you can imagine. And yeah, when I was probably like even up until that 30 to 32, I was always making decisions, and I was living from a place of trying to please others or impress others or try to look a certain way in other people's eyes. And that was like a deep rooted childhood thing of trying to be the good boy and like always everyone thinks highly of you. And what it led me to do was to be this shapeshifter, this like different person for every person. Like, what do you need me to be? What do you need me to be? And so I wasn't me as an identity. I was trying to fit into what I thought everyone else wanted me to be. And that is exhausting. Yeah, it would be like if you're an actor and you're in the movie and you're trying to play 36 characters simultaneously and you're snapping back between them. Really exhausting. And I realized that that's really how I was living my life. I was trying to achieve this so I could get praise from these people. These people would be proud of me. These people would like me. And there were all these different things that I realized weren't really my decisions. They're what I thought other people wanted of me. And that was the big foundation for me that once I hit that point, I frankly didn't know. It was very destabilizing because I didn't know who I was without all those things. All these ego masks that I was wearing for all these people, all these labels that I had, without them, I was like, oh, what am I? Like, who am I? What is this? And it was a scary process because once I got rid of the athlete role after I got injured and after I got rid of the entrepreneur role when I sold my businesses and I got divorced, so I was no longer this role of good husband and hope. Yeah, I wanted to be a father at that point. So none of these masks were there anymore. And so it was like I kind of had to go inside and start asking like probably the most important question we can all ask of ourselves is who am I? Who am I behind that? Who am I behind that? And then keep going. So yeah, it was I like to think of that process is removing what is not to get to the truth of that answer. And so you just keep removing what it's not. And yeah, I did that. I did that in a really hard and rocky way. I had a really tumultuous few year period where I was trying to figure that out in a certain way, like rebuild my life from a stronger foundation. Because up until that point, the foundation was super weak. And with the stress, that foundation started crumbling. And yeah, so I started rebuilding it somewhere around like 32, 33 years old. And from the standpoint of like, who am I really? Who do I want to be? Who am I aspiring to be? Who am I becoming? And then I would look at, there's like different exercises I would do. And I would look at like all those characteristics and those values and the vision I had of my life. And I would start making decisions in line with that. And the hard thing about that is oftentimes they were very different than what I would have done in the past, like what would have been easier for me to do. And that's where I think the bold and courageous action comes from, is that when you start shifting this from who I am for others to who I am for myself, you're kind of rewriting the script of that movie. And yeah, it's can be difficult. And it was for me, for sure.
Wow. That's so cool, because I love where you're talking about rebuilding who we are and finding out who you are. But unless you peel those layers off of who people want you to be, and I think we spend so much time, because I got to please my dad, or I got to please my mom, or I got to please my boss, or I got to please, and we're in this. We get into this cycle of, but am I really living in purpose? And maybe you can talk about that, because I ask people a lot. I say, so if you're living boldly in purpose, one, is it possible to do it and not serve others? Because I don't know. I'll let you answer that. Is it possible to live boldly without serving others? And then is it, the second part of it would be, can I truly live in my purpose if I'm trying to make somebody else happy? Like to me, to change who I am in order to make somebody else happy, instead of me doing what I'm doing and people are happy as a result of the things I'm doing. Maybe walk me through that a little bit of what that's like.
Yeah, so great. The first thing I will say that I think it really helped me understand is differentiating between two different types of purpose. And one we could call like the ego purpose, and one we could call like the deeper purpose, or your soul's purpose, or your heart's purpose. And the ego purpose oftentimes is self-serving. It's really, I want to get to this point. I want to have this thing. I want these people. It's all those things. And so if we're living from ego purpose, absolutely we're going to be in service to self above others. And so the first thing is to realize is like, where in our life are we living from that egoic state? The other purpose, the deeper purpose, our soul's purpose, I really believe that it's more of a process of, like we said, uncovering layers, but also listening. I found that in the times when I was most connected to spirit, to God, oftentimes out in nature, solo, silent, was when I could hear a lot more clearly these like really strong signals and these messages of what I'm here to do and who I'm becoming, and all these deeper messages that you just frankly can't hear with all the distractions of life today, and the ego in there, because it's a lot louder. And so to get to that deeper purpose, you first have to like surrender and relax all the material stuff. And you have to, in a way, like disconnect from it for even a short term, so you can start listening at a much deeper level. And then when you're serving from that deeper soul purpose, I agree with you. I don't think you can be in purpose and not be serving others. I think it is foundational to what we all are here to do. We're here to serve each other, and here to help each other and help each other grow and develop. And we all do it in unique ways. I think that's the great part, is that we all have unique gifts. We all have unique knowledge and life experience. And so the flavor of it will be different for everyone. But I believe it always boils down to, in something, service to others above service to self.
That's so good. And when I think of, so, I'm listening to you, and I'm how we size people up, or we try to figure out who they are. And so I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about what an amazing like retreat person, because I've been on these like I guess where you go out into the wilderness or whatever, and then you're with these guys that just want to hug trees and want to show you how to use a compass and make sure you don't get lost and all that. And then I go on ones where somebody's actually helping me by myself, not to the point where like you're going to make me eat a bug, or like we're going to go so far out to be by ourselves. And there's one that I went on that they're like, well, we're going to go out for 24 hours and we're just going to give you a whistle in your sleeping bag, and then that's it. And I'm like, 24 hours later, I'm like, I still don't like this. I don't want to be where I can't build myself some shelter and all that kind of stuff. I mean, nature's great, but as I'm hearing you, I think you would probably have the ability to reach into somebody's heart, into somebody's soul, and to connect, and then help them connect with that. Is that part of something you strive to do when you're working with folks? Is, hey, we're forget this surface stuff. We can go play games, but no, I want to get to the point where we're going to make a lasting impact. Maybe kind of talk about what that's like with some people sometimes.
Yeah, such a great point. And it kind of boils down to like the two types of purpose that I was just talking about. Like
Mhm.
there's definitely the ego part of me that wants people on my treats and people I'm coaching to think I'm good at what I do and all those things. And usually that would lead me to like saying all my knowledge and like telling them what I think and all this. And that's just the ego pumping itself up, when really, when I serve the most, and I'm super conscious of this, I'm just asking curious questions. I'm like following a thread, pulling on a thread that maybe they haven't pulled on yet. And I'm like genuinely into their experience, where I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what their answer is, but I'm trying to guide them to a place in themselves where the answer is. And so that's two very different ways where I see people, quote unquote, leading. And one is leading through like, look at me, I have all the answers. And the other one is like, let me help you. Let me take you to a place maybe you haven't been before. And when I get into that process with people, I don't know where we're going to go. Sometimes I don't know what's going to come up. Sometimes like really deep wounds come up, and childhood stuff, and then or some dream that they had, like all sorts of things bubble to the surface, and then we just keep pulling on that thread. And it's wild, because I think this is the most important work that anyone can do in their entire life, is to find out what they're here on this planet to do. And
Yes.
yet so few people take the time and the energy and the effort to spend that relatively short amount of time to actually do it.
Yeah. And, as I start thinking through, like when I'm working with folks and trying to define success, because usually when you start the process, it seems like their view of what success is isn't what we come down to as what success is. Because to me, sometimes in a lot of people's minds, it's how other people perceive you. Now I'm successful. That ego part that you're talking about. But when you really start living in your purpose and you really start doing what you were put on this earth to do, no matter what that is, when you really start doing that, the
Mm.
success isn't has anything to do with what other people think about you. Was there a time where you kind of just hit that? I mean, was it, hey, I've done successful companies, and you kind of know at some point when you win and you start winning, it doesn't matter what you do, you can win at. I mean, that's just part
Yeah.
of your makeup and your chemistry and who you are. But then sometimes that leaves such an empty gap because you realize that's okay. So what if I go start another company and we become very successful? If I'm
Mhm.
spending 80 hours a week, 100 hours a
Mhm.
week, and I'm not fulfilled as I'm doing it, then
Hmm.
that's a waste of time. Go ahead.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. Like you're telling my life story, and actually, I wish I could promote it, but it's the topic of the book, my first book that I'm writing right now. I'm in the middle of the first draft, and so it's all about. Yeah, thank you. It's been a humbling process, um, very humbling, and so
Yes.
it's about redefining what success actually means for you. And it kind of goes back to, again, those two principles that we were talking about, the egoic success versus the deeper soul success. And it's shifting from all of these external measures. My daughter screaming in the other room. I don't know if you can hear, but it's switching from all of these external
Mhm.
um, signals that we grow up learning are what makes us successful, like money in our bank account, a bunch of toys in the driveway or in the big house, and accolades and all these things. And I lived, again, for the first 30 to 32 years of my life in that realm. And so I get it. And like you're saying, I got to that point to where I had, I remember I sat down on my 30th birthday, and it's in December. So it always sat really well for the beginning of the new year.
Mhm.
And every year, I would sit down and I would reflect on the year. I would review my goals. Every year, I keep a spreadsheet of all the goals I have in different categories of my life. And on my 30th birthday, I remember this very, very clearly. I was sitting down and I had achieved just about everything I wanted to achieve in my life, like that I had written from the egoic stance before I was 30. And I kind of had this like, oh, I get goosebumps now. I kind of had this shockwave of like, oh no, like what's next? Do I just add another zero in this column to the goal? That doesn't feel right. And do I just achieve that? And so I kind of, for the first time, I like didn't know what to write on my goals. I was like, oh wow, I've done a lot. And so that was my first wake up moment where it's like, oh man, there's got to be something more to this than keep just checking the same boxes of material success. And it actually took me, I always say like 30 to 32, because it was throughout those years, it was like a back and forth process where some days I would wake up and I would just like go back into the old life. I'd put my head down and start working again, start going back to the egoic goals and the egoic success. I was like, no, I got to do this. I got to do this. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm going to do. And then on other days I would wake up and I just have this like this overwhelming, there's got to be something more than just doing the same thing for the rest of my life. I was 30 or something. I was like, this is going to be my whole life. Like, no, thank you. And so it was, the analogy that I used is it was as if I had one foot on like one boat and one foot on the other, and they were slowly drifting apart in opposite directions. I was like doing this life split. On one day I was like, oh no, I got to get back on the safe boat. And then the other day I was like, oh no, I got to take a risk. I got to go for it. And so, yeah, it was, yeah, again, it was a process. It was like moments of awakening, but the process had to unfold in me over many, many years. And it was like, I got to that point to where I was like, what else do I really want? Like, okay, do I want a nicer car? Do I want like more things? And I did that for a while and I was like, actually, I'm pretty good. Like my life is amazing. And that's when this magic thing called gratitude started coming in, when I was like, wow, I actually am happy with my life. Like I love what I've created and what I'm doing. And it started shifting in me that I wasn't seeking anything outside of myself, because I really believed I started to believe I had it all. I was like, look, I've got it all. I've got people that love me. I've got a healthy body. Like I'm doing what I love in this world. I'm helping people. And I was like, well, I have enough. I eat. I've got a roof over my head. And when I started to shift that lens from like, I'm never enough, so I have to keep seeking more, and I shifted that to I am enough, I have enough, and I'm grateful for it, everything in my life changed. I stopped pushing so hard, and the life that I desired was starting to come to me because I was becoming that person. Like we said earlier, I was becoming him. And yeah, it was a beautiful and rocky few years. But there's so many moments when I woke up over that time, and I was happy. Like I woke up joyful, where my whole life previous to that was not the case. I would have peak moments of joy, like, but I was just finding so much more joy and fulfillment in life when I was living that way. And at the end of the day, I realized that, like, what else are we living for? I mean, other than to help others and have a good time doing it, like to choose to be happy. And yeah, these lessons didn't, like I said, they didn't come quick and they didn't come easy, but it was an incredibly worthwhile pursuit.
That's so cool. When we start thinking about the things that we've done in order to reach this, one of the things I hear all the time, whether I'm going to seminars or I'm out there, is, how much time we need to spend on our own personal development and developing who we are. And they say, who you become is going to be based on your associations and your relationships and the books and things you read and the things you listen to. For you, maybe kind of walk me through what you do in order to improve you so you can be more to others? And how much of your time is based on that? Are there some specific things that you would encourage others to do? Kind of walk us through your personal development cycles and how it's helped you throughout the years.
Such a great question. I would say I started in personal development when I was probably 15, 16, 17. I was in high school. I remember I had one of my best friends, his mother actually started giving me books to learn, just nonfiction development books. And some of them were on finance, some of them were on business. And I remember so many of those books say it in many different ways, that at the end of the day, your abilities and your knowledge, your wisdom will be the most valuable thing to you over it, even talking like a career. Like your earning potential is the most valuable thing, like your wisdom, your experience. And so even back then, and for the first, I would say 10 plus years, it was mostly just like learning and reading and listening. I would go to a lot of seminars, and I had a few early mentors and coaches that really helped me out with this a lot. Actually, one of them, he told me that if you read just 4 nonfiction personal development self-help books a year, you're in the top 1% of readers. Just 4. And I was like, oh man, I can do that. And I did it. And then the next year I was like, what if I do 1 a month? So 12 for the year. And I did that. Then the next year I did 1 a week. And then the next year I did 100 nonfiction personal development books in 1 year. And I will say, don't take that advice.
Wow.
because I couldn't actually receive and put into action that much. What I know now is that the knowledge is only valuable if you bring it into action. And so one of the things I do with myself and my clients is I don't move on to the next thing until I've integrated and I've started putting into place the things that I'm learning right now. And so I choose very consciously the information that I consume and what I allow into my brain. And then when it gets in there and something clicks, I set it aside and I go and do the thing. That's probably the most impactful advice that I can give when it comes to like growth and development, is just do the things that you know you should do right now. Just like do the things that you know you should do. And easier said than done, of course, but start with the simplest. So I'll go rewind all the way back to my years as like a personal trainer and a gym owner. Someone would come in with these lofty ambitions. I want to lose 50 pounds in the next 3 months, and I'm going to come to the gym twice a day, and I'm going to do that. And I said, no. I was like, no, I just heard where you're starting. We're just going to take a 10-minute walk every day. No matter what, we take a 10-minute walk every day. And that's where I took people. I didn't go like, yeah, because I'd seen over and over again that people would say they do that, and the expectation is so high, and they always fall short. And so I say, implement the simplest possible thing that's in your awareness right now, and just do it consistently every single day. That was something that I was doing even before I realized I was doing. Is I would when I wanted a new habit or a new mind change, I would implement something every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, but it was something very small that I could never have an excuse not to do it. And I would have these Post-it notes that remind me, and these calendar reminders to just do the one thing, do the one most important thing that I'm working towards right now. And then the more I did that, the easier it became to do more. So like me now, like I've been working out for over 20 years, like going to the gym is not a struggle for me. But back then when I started, it absolutely was. I was not that guy. And you could use that analogy for any aspect of our life. And so just doing the very simple thing that you know you need to do or should do. And you really, if you shut off your distractions in your life and you stop all the inputs, which we get so many of them today, like constantly, it becomes really clear like what we need to pay attention to. For some people, it's like, hey, I really need to pay attention to my health. I really need to pay attention to my family, my relationships, whatever it may be. I really need to pay attention to my money. And most people will just avoid all of these problems, and they'll get into distractions so they don't have to look at them or deal with them. But as soon as you become aware of, like, I call it integrity. As soon as you become aware of something out of integrity in your life, you take a step towards bringing it back into integrity, period. And that was just a skill that I started developing a long time ago. And again, it started with just my fitness. That was where I started my journey of improving myself. And that has carried over to every other area of my life. And then as far as like what I do today, here's the cool thing. Here's the cool thing I'll say. When we intentionally work on ourselves very specifically and directly, and we do these simple things, these simple habits that improve our life, they start to ingrain, they start to become who we are, or we become it, as we were talking about earlier. So we are becoming it. And so to keep doing it is not so much effort again. There's a line that I use all the time with myself and my clients. It's just, I'm the type of person that ... fill in the blank. And you put in who you're aspiring to be. I'm the type of person that spends uninterrupted time with my children. I'm the type of person that moves my body every day. I'm the type of person that eats healthy, whatever it is. And you create this aspirational identity for yourself, and then you're constantly moving towards it. And as you become it, there's no more thinking about it. That's the thing that's really cool. And so I look at development as just these really simple layers, this habit stacking over a long period of time. Again, I studied a lot about money, and it's exactly the same as compounding interest. It's like a wonder of the world how compounding interest works. And I believe our self-development is the same. It's compounding. So what I'm doing today is layering on years of being intentional with my growth. And today I am very intentional about, first and foremost, where my attention is.
Okay.
I'm just like every other human. It's so easy to get sucked into screens. It's so easy to get sucked into social media. And so I'm very intentional, and I have boundaries in my life because I know what happens when I get lost in that world. And so when I have those boundaries, I have a lot more space and time, a lot more presence. I have a daily practice that I do. That's always some sort of movement and breath and awareness meditation. I kind of do a slight version of that every day. And that helps me get centered in myself. That helps me get grounded. And sometimes I'll even do a micro version of it throughout the day. Like when I was working with a lot of clients, I don't work with so many anymore, but I was like back to back all the time. I would always schedule 10 minutes between every session. I used to go back to back, but then I would schedule 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, I would just go outside. I would breathe, feel the ground on my feet, sun on my skin, and I would just get back to center. I call it transitions. And so everyone can use this in their life, where when you're transitioning from one thing to the next, take a pause, take a breath. That can be for a lot of people when they're driving home from work. Maybe they've had a hard day. Maybe they stressed out about a project they're working on. And as soon as they pull into the driveway, turn off the car, before you just rush to get in, take a moment and a pause. Just breathe deeply, and do that a few times. And what you'll notice is when you do that consistently, when you're transitioning, you don't bring the past into the present. Yeah. So like back when I was doing that, I was a jerk. I was a terrible person to my family and my ex-wife at the time, because I was just carrying all that stress with me home, and I was carrying it everywhere I went. And so just taking a few moments to transition and just, okay, going home, be present with my children no matter what happened in the past. It's still going to be there when I wake up tomorrow. So I can just leave it there. And so I can just be here now in this moment. And I think that is one of the most powerful, just practical piece of advice that I can give is just breathe. Anytime you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, you're angry, just breathe, slow down, and allow yourself to come back to your center, come back to grounding.
Well, it's so cool that you said it's the coolest part. And I'm saying that it's cool, but you equate breathing as part of personal development, which
Oh,
is so huge. I mean, but you don't think that way. You think, oh, I just got to get all this stuff into my brain. But if your brain doesn't have oxygen, right, it's
yeah.
deprived of all the things that you need it to do in order to work as efficiently as it can. One of
Yeah,
the things, go ahead.
I know this from my fitness days, from my athlete days. So if anyone has ever worked to like as hard as they can, riding a bike or running or whatever it is, like when you're so out of breath and you're so fatigued and exhausted, your brain actually starts shutting down, like it's critical thinking. Like everything narrows and you have no expanded field of view at all. You don't have critical thinking, like, and the same thing happens when we're short with our breath in our daily life. And so we just get narrowed in onto like whatever we're feeling in that moment. And so the breath helps to relax that, especially the feelings. It allows us to become a master of our emotions when we become a master of our breath. And most people, this is just like a really simple gauge that people can do at home. They can breathe, just take a normal breath, and then they can place their hands on their body where they're actually breathing into. And what most people will find, especially when they're overwhelmed, is they're breathing up here in their neck and their shoulders. And just a really good rule of thumb is the lower you breathe in your body, like all the way down into your lower belly, the calmer you'll be, the more relaxed and at peace you'll be. And so it's almost like a little game. You can just take it from all the way up here and you just slowly bring it down, and you'll notice your mood change. Your whole demeanor will change when you do that.
Yeah, sometimes I'll go speak at schools, and that's one of the things I'll start with. And I'm like, take a deep breath. And
Yeah.
then, like, you see their stomachs go in, and, it's all up here. You're like, okay, now I want you to put your hand on your belly. I want you to take that breath. I want you to feel your actual tummy come out. That
Mm-hmm.
means that the air is going in. And, and it's the one thing that even when you're talking, whoever, when somebody gets so focused on something, the one thing they, not only breath, but just their health in general. I mean, they're willing to go eat at a fast food every single day, or they're willing to not do any exercise, or willing. The one thing that's going to make it so that they can achieve what they're trying to achieve is the one thing that they decide, I'm going to give that up for right now. And it's one thing you can't. It just, you really
Mm-hmm.
just can't give it up.
It's so true. It's so true. When we're breathing short and high in our body, we make bad decisions. We make survival based decisions because your biology thinks you're in survival when you're breathing fast and rapid and high like that. Cortisol and adrenaline are pumping in your body. And so you're going to make survival based decisions. And survival based decisions are only good for the moment, they're not good for your future self. They're just good for the second to get you out of danger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and this will probably be my last question. I'm going to ask you, to kind of, make sure you tell us what you want us to hear. But doing a lot with AI right now, and our world has changed. I just turned 60 in March, and so I remember the times before there was even internet. And as I was an educational technologist, and that's what I've done, and now I'm really jumping into the AI stuff. I just finished a book called Relationship versus AI, and the power of making sure your relationships are there. We have all this bombardment of social media and trying to compare our lives to other folks and other things based on all this bombardment of information. It's not about knowing stuff anymore. It used to be I had to know my phone number. I don't need to know anybody's phone number anymore, right? It's in my phone.
Mhm.
How are you helping people through this process of how important relationships are? Because we do it all for relationships, right? I mean,
Mhm.
everything we do is to cultivate or to create or to have a relationship, but we kind of lose sight of that inside of all the electrical stuff that's around
Mhm.
us. How are
Yeah.
you going and helping people through this?
Yeah. Great question. And you, when they survey people end of life on their deathbed, they don't say, I wish I was on the computer screen more." Ever, ever, ever. They universally say, I wish I spent more time with my loved ones, my friends, my family, my children, my spouse, universally. And so that right there, we can take a lot of wisdom from, is we don't have to get to our deathbed and have all these regrets to learn from the people that have shared that wisdom. And I've really taken that to heart in my life. And I really believe the most valuable currency of the future is going to be human connection, because no matter how much technology we develop, we're still these human beings that have a heart and a soul. And it's a universal experience that we want to feel connected to one another, like you were saying. And so those that develop their capacity to be able to connect in a heart open way, an honest and authentic way, are going to be the most valuable people of the future, because so many are forgetting that when they're blasting out their characters on a keyboard or on a phone with their thumbs, and that's all they really know how to do to interact with others. They're losing so much of the nourishment of what it means to be human and to be in connection with others. And the further we go into AI, and what I always say about like AI and just technology in general is, we our primary intention should be to become the user or the master or the director of the tool, and not the slave to it. And so
Mm.
if we're using these things to just, we're just letting them take over our thinking, letting them take over like just every aspect of our life, we're going to our body is so good at adapting, it will start down regulating your ability to critically think, your ability to connect with others. It will just, without practice, it will atrophy. And so even with the tools, you can learn how to use them, but always create a separation between them. Remember who's the one that's using the tool and not the other way around. And I see so many crazy stories in the world already with the impact that AI is having on people, and learning how to manipulate their emotions and do these crazy things. And that's a real danger for people when you start um, losing your capacity to know that you're different than that thing that you're using, or you get lost in it. And so always remember to be the master of those tools. And I think that just like any inanimate object, it's neutral. It's not good or bad, but it's how we use it that it will be good or bad for us individually and collectively as a society. And so um, doubling down on authenticity, like there's so much, I mean, it's so easy to spot, like the websites and the social media, so many people are just using AI to like write all their things and everything. And so instead of that, I double down and I pour my heart into what I do share. And people feel that, they know the difference. And I don't know if it will be studied, but there will be a time when there will be a study of like what's human and what's artificial, or like what's coming from a soul and what's coming from a machine. And I think the best thing that we can do, while we're obviously expanding our knowledge and working with technology in a conscious way, continue to double down on what it means to relate to one another. And because if that gets lost, I mean, the human race is nothing but a extinct animal at that point. And so I think that should be a pretty high on our priority list, higher than just creating a new shiny thing to make us more obsolete.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the technology helps us do stuff. It doesn't help us be.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what, if we can remember to continue down that path. Thank you for that. What didn't we talk about? I was so selfish in asking all the questions that I wanted to know. And there's some things I'm sure that you wanted to share with our audience, and how to get a hold of you, how to get into some of these things. But yeah, please just share with us your heart.
Yeah. Oh, well, first I'll say if people want to get a hold of me, best way to do it is chrismarhefka.com, which is just my name spelled out, or Chris Marhefka on Instagram is another good way. And they can find out all of the things that I'm doing, the programs and the coaching. And what was just on my heart as you asked that question, if there's anything else, what was coming to me, I don't know if it was because I heard her in the other room as we were podcasting, but is my daughter and just children in general. She's almost 2. And despite all of the personal development work and all that stuff, I think it helped prepare me, but having a child really shifted my entire perspective of what it meant to be selfless. And one thing I wanted to say is, whether or not people listening have kids, a reminder that we have so much we can learn from them. Literally so much of my work that people pay me a lot of money to do and work with them is to getting back in touch with a lot of qualities that every single child is born with and is inherent in, until the adults stuff it away or block it out. And I'm talking about things like looking at the world with a curious and awe-filled eye, like seeing beauty in everything. We go on walks and she'll like get mesmerized by a leaf or a stick and just like look at, and I'm like, wow, when was the last time I did that? And it's just like a genuine joy with life, just in every moment that's possible. And just like the innocence and the purity. I mean, they are closer to God. If you believe this, they are closer to God before they have all this human conditioning that's forced into them by the adults. And so there's so much that we can learn from just being in their presence and appreciating them. And the funny thing, I didn't even plan to talk about this, but the next thing that came to mind right after I said the children and the babies is our elders as well. And so much of our culture has shipped them away and blocked them off, and there's distance between them. And so I just got back I was 3 months in Europe. And one thing I noticed there is that people are out with all the generations. We're out on the beach and there's grandparents watching the kids and parents over here, and they're all together, they're having dinner together. And it's just more baked into the culture from what I saw there. And I noticed that, like, even my own personal experience, there's just, there's like this, parents don't want to be a burden. And so they kind of check out of life, or they get put in a nursing home, or they just kind of get distance. And thinking about the thing I said earlier about people on their deathbed and the wisdom that they share, the people that are more, I call it levels, actually. I don't even call it age. You're just level 60, like you said, like so you've reached a higher level of life, and you have the cheat codes for the video game to send down the line to the younger people. And when we don't have that reverence for wisdom, for elders, it gets lost. And then we repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And one of the last men's retreats that I ran, we had 3 18-year-olds, and then we had, I think, 3 or 4 men in their 60s. And so one of the things that we did was one of the kind of parts of the retreat, we brought them together, and the elders were sharing wisdom to these young guys. And not only did they benefit, but like the whole room of like 40 men were like soaking it in. And for me, it was realizing how I don't often go out of my way to seek mentorship from people that are decades ahead of me, that maybe they're like on the surface, I would think like, oh, they don't have anything to share with me. They're living a completely different life. They're retired. But all of that life experience has been gained, and it's had time to soak in. Like the way I talk now, there's no way I could be able to articulate this at 20 years old. And same thing goes later on in life as well. And so I think finding an appreciation for the younger generations and the older generations is a really valuable thing that we can bring back into our awareness. And that's one of the things that we do really consciously in my family, is we make sure that we carve out time that our daughter is with all of her grandparents. Really important.
Oh, so cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, because it's so important. And, I don't know if I have 8 children and 16 grandkids right now. And, the youngest are 1 and 2, and I got a 15-year-old grandchild. And we try to make sure every other year that we're doing stuff together. We call our family the A tribe. Last name's Arnold. And last year we were in San Diego, and there's 32 of us. Our first trip, there was 15 when we had 1 grandkid, and we took them to Hawaii and came out with some more grandkids. Every week I do, on Sundays, I'm using technology and YouTube, and I'm sending them messages, and I did thing on all their names. And it's just so important what you just said is how we keep those relationships and everything together. Chris, this has been such an exciting. I've learned so much, and I've grown so much, and I can't wait to talk to you again someday, and we get a chance, and you get back from your retreat and hear all this. And I hope that the folks that are listening, if this is your first podcast, there's so many more that are like that. Hit the subscribe and the notification. But I would connect with Chris. I would find out what it is he's doing. He's gone from those processes of identity from, what does it take to be successful? And he can show you that. But what does it take to live in purpose? And that's what this show is all about. And you've definitely personified and made sure that you've taught us a whole lot today. So thank you so much for being on the show. Do you have one last final thought that you would love to just share with everyone? Those other 2 were great gems, so I don't want to you to come up with more. That's one other final thought. I would love to hear it.
It's kind of on a similar thread, but what just came to me was love your neighbor. They're your brother and sister, whether you know it or not, whether you got the same last name or not. We're a lot more alike than we are different. And I think that's getting lost for a lot of people right now. And
yes,
I think the world would be a much better place if we loved our neighbors.
And so much just distraction and everything else is part of our life. The division that's in there. Please do that. Please make sure. And it starts with conversations like Chris and I just had today. There was no agenda of, who you are or what you believe in and that kind of stuff. It was, how can we both figure out ways to serve others and then talk about it in this way. So I encourage you to go out and do those things. For me, I want you all to remember that you're God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys on the next one. Chris, again, thank you for being part of it. And you guys have an amazing, awesome, wonderful, awestruck day today. I'll talk to you soon.